ho ho! We're back for part 2. What's up, guys? Part 2 of Tales of the Darkside. I don't know why I just got up out of my chair and came back, but that's what I always do for my vids. So hey, that's what I'm doing for you guys. It was good, y'all. Let's talk about part 2 of Tales from the Darkside. That is what, if those of you have not watched part 1, this one will be uploaded immediately after. So yeah, watch part 1, dumbasses. That's why it's labeled part 1 and part 2, motherfuckers. Watch part 1. It's going to be painful, but there's a lot of shitty episodes in there, and we got away from the shitty episodes, now on to the decent, to the really good episodes. So you're going to be getting a little bit more praise. Tales from the Darkside fans who are upset with me about the first half because I didn't enjoy it. And I'm still going to be doing a little bit of slandering in this part, but most of it's going to be, I guess, decent ones that really only the top 5 I would recommend, or top 6 I would recommend, top 6 or 7, but yeah. Still a little bit of praise, a little bit more positive in this video. So, number 12, starting off the second half of this list, is The Odds, which gets a 7 out of 10. This is a decent episode. This one gets a 7 out of 10. This one is basically about these guys who are in this bar/restaurant kind of area, and they do a lot of betting. They do betting on horses. They take on different bets. You get the hint that they might be tied to the mafia or something. I don't know if they are exactly, but they seem like mafia kind of guys who always take on bets and always kind of take up the ways to make money. And one day this guy ends up showing up in their bar/area where they hang out, and he basically bets on this recent race going on with these horses, and he bets on like the worst horse out of the bunch, one that's constantly lost. It's a very unlucky horse, and he takes it up with the main guy. The main guy's kind of like this, mafia leader guy. He says, I always take a bet. I don't back out of a bet. I always take a bet. I'd have never backed out. All right, kid. So I'll take you up on that bet. You finna lose your money. Turns out he doesn't lose his money. He ends up winning because the losing horse ends up actually, for the first time ever, winning the race. This kind of shocks everybody. They're a little bit thrown off. And then that guy comes back the next day, or I don't know if it's the next day, but maybe right after. The next bet he takes up is even more absurd, even more likely to lose. He has much less chances to win, but he uses the money that he won from this horse bet and invested in there. So that way he could basically double his payout again if he wins. Shocker, he wins again. So this is a very kind of predictable episode, but I think it is well done, or at least done well enough in terms of the acting that it gets a 7 out of 10. Involves this guy who keeps winning bets, and then after a little bit this mafia guy kind of thinks, is there more to this guy than meets the eye? What's his trick? How is he doing this? He kind of reminds me of somebody I knew in the past. And then you go down this route into revealing possibly the identity of what's going to happen. And then the last bet in this story is basically a life or death bet. And this one, the chances are very minuscule, if not impossible, to it happening. And then you find out something that happens involving the bet. It's revealed. Then some information is revealed about the potential identity of this character that walked in the bar. And then you get this sort of bittersweet, basically kind of like this kind of sweet but kind of dark ending in terms of what happens to one of the main characters. So yeah, that is The Odds. This one is a pretty decent episode, a 7 out of 10. It's pretty, it's pretty, I guess, good. If you watch it, I think the acting will do enough for you. You will predict where it's going down if you watch enough horror. It's very predictable, very kind of cookie cutter, but it's pretty decent. You'll enjoy it. You'll find some enjoyment in it. So yeah, if you want to take a watch, this is the half of the the episodes where I would be recommending. Maybe if you want to really go dive into the series, you could start with this and then work your way up. Next one, number 11. Gets a 7.2 out of 10, which is The Madness Room. Now, The Madness Room is about this couple and friend who are hanging out in a stormy night in this kind of mansion/house, and they brought a Ouija board. Now, this episode kind of weirded me out a little bit because the guy who is like dating the girl in this story, the girl is super young and beautiful, but the guy is super old. So I'm like, is this kind of like an older gentleman, like a sugar daddy thing going on? She's hot and young. He's kind of older and unattractive. Or he's kind of like older and like, older looking, I don't know. It's not clarified if it's a sugar daddy thing going on. Maybe towards the end it's kind of, revealed, but I don't know. The Madness Room is about these 3 guys hanging out. The woman, the guy she's dating or married to, and then this friend of theirs, this guy friend of theirs. The stormy night, they bring a Ouija board, and they try using the Ouija board to communicate with some spirits, and unfortunately they end up talking to one of the spirits that may have been a part of this house for a long time ago, and then they find out some information involving the house from this spirit, and they try investigating the mystery, leading to this potential madness room, in which case anybody who enters the secret room in the house goes absolutely insane and then kills themselves. Quite a dark premise, but it does go down that dark side route. Hey, another pun. Goes down the dark side of storytelling, right? And you kind of investigate the mystery of this house with these three characters. The ending I was very much predicting. It's a very predictable ending. Again, this is a predictable story. You kind of figure out where the ending is going towards. It does end on a kind of a dark route, but I was so preoccupied with pretty much predicting where the story was going to go down that because it's so kind of basic and simple and predictable, it only gets a 7.2 out of 10. Some of the dark material and the premise being a little bit darker is what gets the 0.2, making it a little bit more pretty decent. But yeah, that's the Madness Room. Not really a lot to it. You'll predict where it's going down. It has some creepy moments, a nice little twist that if you don't predict it, you would probably enjoy it more. But if you're like me and you're kind of used to these kind of stories, it doesn't really do much. So yeah. Next up is number 10 on my list. We're getting into the top 10. And this is actually a Stephen King story, which I've read in Skeleton Crew. I have not finished Skeleton Crew, but I am reading it. I'm reading all the Stephen King short story collections first, and then I'll go on to his novels. And this one I have read, and I believe I gave this one a similar score, if not maybe a tad bit lower, but I think I gave this an identical score to what I gave in the book, to the short story, which is number 10, The Word Processor of the Gods. Now, this is the only Stephen King story I think is adapted in Tales from the Darkside that I know of. I don't know about the future seasons, but I know it's the only one adapted from in season 1, and maybe in season 2, maybe they use it, but I don't know. Word Processor of the Gods is in here, and I'm not quite sure why this short story was adapted. I kind of know, because it is a little bit strange, a little bit weird, and I guess it does fit within the budget and the kind of storytelling that Tales from the Darkside goes for in this first season. But I feel like Stephen King has a lot of better short stories that you could have gone for. Word Processor of the Gods was a very average short story, and this one, it was a pretty decent short story with a cool concept, a really dope title, but not much in terms of the substance to the story and the execution. And this episode adaptation, I think, is very faithful, very accurate to the short story. So this one gets a 7.2 out of 10. For those who don't know, The Word Processor of the Gods is about this kind of tech whiz dad who's very much into repairing gadgets and picking up gadgets. Well, not repairing gadgets, but he kind of picks up old typewriters and stuff because he's into writing. And he is kind of like a very, kind of logical kind of guy. He picks up this word processor that one of I think his brother's son made this for him before they died in this car accident. His brother was an alcoholic, and his brother got drunk one night and killed his wife and his son. His son was this very brilliant, smart guy, and he made this word processor for him that actually got shipped today on this main character, this dad's birthday, because they were close with each other. And he told the son one day that he wanted a word processor eventually because he thought that would help him write stories and become successful as an author. And then he made one from scratch and got it shipped on time today for the dad's birthday. For this main character's birthday. And his neighbor, who knew the boy, is kind of helping him bring it in, setting it up in his office. And, the neighbor talks about how, this kid was super brilliant. He wished that he would have been alive because he would have turned into a super smart kid, a super bright guy with a bright future in inventing and creating stuff and innovating technology. And the main character kind of doubts that this typewriter will even work because the kid was so young. I think he's supposed to be like 12 or 10, but in this episode, he looks like a teenager. I guess it's the only actor they could find. And even though he doubts that it's going to work, the neighbor guy who knew this kid and how smart he was, he's like, you never know what these kids are capable of, because he's like, there's a lot of brilliant scientific kids who started off young and made these things basically out of nothing. He's like, this one guy made this an atom smasher out of basically 2 tin cans. And then this other young guy made basically a pipe bomb out of a few, junk stuff that he had from a fence or something like that. Like some junk, he made a pipe bomb. Another guy's made this brilliant invention out of tin cans. So this kid who made this word processor, maybe he could have made something more brilliant than you think. And this episode kind of hints that the neighbor knows more about the secret and brilliant mind of the uncle, the brother's son, this son in question who built the word processor. The neighbor kind of is hinted in the episode no more than is expected, because when he gets a phone call from the main character, when he does find out it works in mysterious ways, the neighbor kind of hints on that he kind of knew that this might happen the whole time, and there's more than meets the eye that he knows about. And the main character, although he's an unsuccessful writer, he deals with the family that he does not love. His wife goes out on bingo nights and brings home the prizes. She's very sort of just like, fat and rude and not the kind of woman he would go for, and kind of insults and talks down to him and his passion. And his son is this fake punk rock star guy who's all the time making loud noise and always talking back to him and never doing anything with his life. And he's kind of jealous that his brother, who is this drunk, stupid alcoholic, basically, ended up getting this, brilliant kid of a son and this beautiful wife, and he feels like he got cheated of that. And you do get more hints in the story that, he kind of had a little bit of a worse relationship with his brother. That's why I think I gave the story a little bit of a higher rating, because there's more context involving him and his brother and their connection, which adds more to the outcome of the story. But essentially, he finds out this word processor does work, and when it turns on, it has extra keys on there. One is, I think, like, something is like, it's one button that it's like different from the others. I forgot what it said, but basically, he can type anything in his word processor, and if he clicks that special button at the top, it can bring it into reality. And if he types it, he types up something on the word processor that it's like, it retcons something in the real world, or it takes away something. When he presses another button like delete, it actually does delete it from reality and retcons it. So he finds out that this word processor does have secret powers, and you kind of go diving down where he kind of goes, how he kind of abuses the power, and right before something happens which may shut down, another pun, the possibilities of something better happening in his life, you kind of find out what may happen at the end of the story that changes his life for the better or the worse. And it ends on a little bit of a heartfelt ending. So this one gets a 7.2 out of 10. Pretty faithful to the short story. But the short story did have a little bit of a more context behind the brother, the drunk brother, and this main character's relationship. And, although it is a cool premise, it is, again, a dope title. There's not much substance in the story, and it does kind of go down a very happy-go-lucky route, which does bring down the score. So 7.2 out of 10. Pretty decent, pretty all right. Next one. These are going to enter the top 9, which are the ones I actually do enjoy. And this one, I have a new section in my reviews and rankings for multiple stories called basically the sleeper pick, and then the Axe body spray pick. The sleeper pick is the one that it may not be my highest rated, but it is the one that I feel is the most underrated, because of how much I secretly did enjoy it more than I thought I would. And then the Axe body spray pick is the overrated ones, where maybe it might be higher ranked and maybe the fandom likes it more, but I didn't think it was, in some regards, as good as people or other people told me. So this one is actually my sleeper pick, the one that I do actually enjoy more than I thought I would. And even though it's not the highest ranked, it's only number 9, I did probably enjoy the premise of this. I just like the way it's done. It's a perfect, or not a perfect, but a really good package of a story, which is called Levitation. Levitation is about this kid who goes with his friend to the carnival, and he's this aspiring magician who looks up to this one magician that's going to be at the carnival, who's kind of like the next Houdini. He thinks that this guy may have learned some secrets of Houdini before he passed away, and he really looks up to this guy. This guy is a hero to him, and as he sees this guy do his magic act with his friend in front of a crowd, he kind of realizes that this guy does very trivial, childish magic, and that all these reports that he read in the London newspaper about these headlines of this guy being this brilliant magician, the next, Houdini successor, that it may have not all been true, because right now the stuff that he's doing in front of him, he already knows the tricks to it, and it's all very childish, basic magic. So he goes to confront him and try to find out why his idol that he looks up to is hiding off the real magic that the people have bragged about. And you kind of find out why this guy may be sort of washed up, kind of retired in terms of what he used to be, because there may have been some negative consequences that came with certain tricks that he did. And this kid is very kind of defeated. He feels like he's kind of been robbed. So during his next acts, he tries, harassing the guy into showing real magic, tries pushing and prodding, even though he shouldn't be pushing and prodding. And let's just say he may find out the truth. And the truth is not done in the classic stereotypical way of the main character kind of, learns the negative consequences that come with his actions. No, it's the negative consequences that come with the teacher character, in the sense, coming out of retirement and maybe giving in to the negative emotions that were invicted within him, and reviving some things that should have not been revived. That's the way I'll put it. And the ending is very sort of simple, but it's very kind of dark, and it feels like the perfect closure to this story. And this one gets a 7.3 out of 10. So this one is a good story. I would recommend this one to people. Even if you wanted to start watching Tales from the Darkside, this one is one I would recommend you try checking out first and build your way up. It's a good story, a good package of a story, and I think even though it's very simple, it ended up being my sleeper pick because I did enjoy it more than I thought it was going to be off of the premise and my initial thoughts. So yeah, this is a good story. Levitation gets a 7.3 out of 10. Next one is number 8 on my list, which is another 7.3 out of 10, same as Levitation, although I do think this one is a little bit better. So even though it's the same score, it's ranked higher, which is In the Cards. Now, In the Cards is about this local tarot card reader who reads people's fortunes, and she kind of does it as a way to make money, make her living. And even though she's not like a full tarot card reader, a full, truly, future reader kind of person, she just kind of does it for a living and kind of this hokey pokey astrological sign bullshit kind of stuff, you know what I mean? She eventually one day meets this one client who comes in, who actually switches out her deck of cards with another deck of cards that were in her purse in the middle of an act after distracting the main character. And after this starts happening, when the main character starts doing tarot card readings for other people after this, they all end up being these very tragic, unfortunate consequences to the future readings, where like they'll talk about people's loved ones dying, or she'll see dark visions like accidents and stuff happening, and it freaks her out because it's all coming true, and this stuff never came true before. She would always say these very basic things that would allow her to get away and get money, which is a nice little subtle commentary on that kind of stuff. But now this stuff is actually happening, and she finds out like what's wrong with these cards? Are they cursed? Are they bringing on these unfortunate consequences upon people? These all future readings are dark. This has never happened in my life. She freaks out. She feels like they're a danger, and when she tries burning and destroying the cards, they cannot be destroyed or burned. They're stuck with her, and they always appear with her, even if she tries to make them go away. And then she potentially finds out the identity of who that client was that may have switched out her cards. She confronts that person, and then it's revealed the only way to get out of this situation involves the cost of potentially somebody else's well-being. And let's just say these negative consequences and actions and karma come back to bite the main character in the ass. And let's just say it ends on a very dark, somber note. This is a very good, not very good, but it's a good story. Very good for, I guess, Tales from the Darkside Season 1 standards, but it's a good story. This one gets a 7.3 as well. I thought it was well done. It was very dark, very good, and I would recommend you start watching this one. It's dark throughout, so just a fair warning, this is not a happy story, but when you're talking about Tales from the Darkside, this is what I expect in that weird Twilight Zone, kind of done right sort of way. So yeah, In the Cards, 7.3 out of 10. This is a good story. I would recommend it. Number 7 on my list is I'll Give You a Million, which is a 7.4 out of 10, a little bit higher than the other two. This one is about these two very rich millionaire guys who are basically they're very dicks, they're very douchebaggy, a bunch of dickheads, very pretentious, and They're very competitive with each other. They're playing a game of pool and talking about how kind of shitty people they are and how they made their money in very shitty ways and how they take advantage of people. And the one guy who thinks he's more shittier than the other guy and more sort of a sellout says that he offers a contract to the other rich guy, which is basically, you will give me your soul over for $1 million. And right away, this catches the other guy off guard. He thinks it's maybe some kind of joke, some kind of prank. But it seems the other millionaire is very sort of, he's very adamant on it. He really does believe it. And that makes the other guy kind of question, does he have some sort of weird powers? Is this something more than meets the eye? Am I actually in danger if I sign this contract? But in a way to kind of prove and show off his ego, he's like, yeah, I'll sell you my soul for $1 million. There's no way I'm gonna die anytime soon. So I'm not croaking anytime soon, so you're never gonna get that $1 million. As far as I'm concerned, and for all I know, you'll die before me. So in that way, I'll just claim the $1 million. I get to keep it. So yeah, that's what this kind of promises. Like, if you die within a certain amount of days, or before I do, I get the $1 million. But if I die, or if you don't die, I'll even pay you a little bit more. So that's the contract. They sign the contract, and then something happens, a little bit of a twist that kind of reveals maybe sort of the corruption behind one of these guys, the dark intentions they had, and then that ends up having consequences on that character, where let's just say he may have a haunting result, and there may be more than meets the eye. So that's all gave you $1 million. This one does have sort of a creep show feel to it, kind of gave me a little bit of a Cat from Hell kind of feel to it. I feel like this one would be in creep show, probably done better, but I feel like this would be a creep show story. So I'll give you $1 million, gets 7.4 out of 10. I did really enjoy it up until the very ending, which I think is kind of schlocky. I felt like the ending is schlocky, even though it's dark. It's done in a very sort of over-the-top schlocky way, which kind of took it away from me. So it gets a 7.4 out of 10. This is a good story. I'd recommend it. It has a very cool, interesting premise to it, and some good little jump scares and good kind of creepy tension. But the ending being schlocky kind of takes it away. Kind of makes it a little bit over the top. Some people may have ranked this a lot higher. That's fair. I can understand it. But just sort of, it took it away from me. So I'll give you $1 million. It's a 7.4. It's still good. Still gets a good rating. But not as high as some other people may have it. Now we get to my number 6, which is a 7.6 out of 10, a little bit of a jump, a little bit higher, 0.2, which is Trick or Treat. Now, Trick or Treat, I think, is the only story by George Romero, which is in the season 1. And Trick or Treat is a very cool concept about this guy who basically is a shopkeeper owner, and he basically provides money to people, like farmers and poor people who are in debt, and then in turn they owe him money, they owe him in return. So basically like the classic bank scamming that happens, where he'll give them money at the time, then they have to pay interest and pay him more back, so he gets profit off of it. And he has a very sick game that he does every Halloween, where he will set up the most scariest haunted house inside of his house, where he sets up all these contraptions and all these scary things, and then he'll have the kids of those people that he lent money to come in this house, and if they can make it all the way through and find the notes that have these loans that they own him, that kid's family no longer owes him money, which is huge, because then they can stay out of debt. So he has these kids basically show up on Halloween night, eve, whatever, and go through this haunted house that he set up, and they all get scared, they all get freaked out. And they all kind of leave in a very traumatized state. And even though these parents sometimes are very pushy to get rid of their debts, they kind of realize that these are their children, and this guy leaves them mentally traumatized. And one kid belongs to a farmer who is very adamant on going there and taking care of the situation, even though his dad is like, don't do it, I don't want you to get traumatized or scared. I don't know what he does to kids inside of there, but they all come out crying and terrified. I don't want you to go through that. So a very caring dad, but the kid is very brave. He wants to help out his family. So let's just say by the end of this Halloween night, there may be some outside forces that get revenge on this shopkeeper owner, and there might be a victory, a little bit of revenge that happens for the people of this town, and getting rid of the bad situations that have been put upon them. So yeah, that's Trick or Treat. This one gets a 7.6. The second half is very much unexplained, so you kind of have to leave the explanation a little bit out of your mind and kind of just treat it as something that happens because of the festivities of the night, some dark activities, some supernatural forces Treat it as it is and you will enjoy it. I gave it a 7.6 out of 10. Even though it's not the best thing in the world, I think George Romero did a good job with this episode. It's a good story, a very cool creative premise, and the second half, although it is over the top and kind of freaky and has no explanation, it is still enjoyable, and you get a little bit of sweet revenge, as sweet as the candy of Halloween at the end of the episode. So yeah, 7.6 out of 10. Now we get onto my top 5 stories, which number 5 is Bigelow's Last Smoke. This one is a complete ripoff of Quitters Inc. from Night Shift and Stephen King's short story collection. A complete ripoff, only done a little bit differently. But for any of you who've read Quitters Inc., you know this one is, a ripoff. And Quitters Inc. is better than this. The short story is better than this episode. However, bias aside, and that bit of, plagiarism, or I guess, not plagiarism, it's not technically plagiarism, but copying Stephen King's story without giving him his credit and glory. Bigelow's Last Smoke gets a 7.8 out of 10. It's still a well-done story. It's about this guy who wakes up one day in his apartment, and as he's kind of going through his apartment and trying to get a smoke, he realizes that this is not his apartment. It's actually a stage set up for him, in which case he's entrapped in there. And it's made to replicate his apartment. However, there is modifications made. The TV screen is connected to a psychiatrist who is studying this guy named Bigelow. And this psychiatrist reveals that Bigelow actually signed a paper, a contract to a, psychiatric ward or place that guaranteed 100% cure to anybody with a smoking addiction. And he signed up for it because his dad got cancer, lung cancer. He didn't want it to happen to him. He knew he had to stop. So he takes upon this contract and signs it, and now he's stuck in this situation where he's basically being studied like a guinea pig, and every time he smokes, these alarms go off, this blaring sound, this hypnotizing noise, or hypnotizing visuals and noise, and it's very painful, very annoying. So it's basically forcing him to quit. They're playing mind tricks with him, and essentially he's kind of put in this situation where he has to find a way out, and the only way out in this case is quitting smoking. So you get that sense of very much Quitters Inc., where it is a very similar story done, but the short story Quitters Inc. is much more creepier, much more dark. This one's not as dark, but it's still fucked up, still kind of fucks with you in the head, and that's why I give it a 7.8 out of 10. The acting is good, gives you that sense of addiction and how painful it can be, and it has a very cool premise. Although it's a ripoff, it's still good, it's still well done. So it gets a 7.8 out of 10. This is a pretty good, very good episode. So yeah, Bigelow's Last Smoke makes number 5 on my list. Number 4 is another 7.8 out of 10. Same as Bigelow's Smoke, but I do think this one's a little bit better. It is more original. However, the only problem with this is that it's a very, very predictable story. I knew the entire thing from bottom to top, and it did not attempt to make any twist or any turn in a different direction. This one is Anniversary Dinner, which is about this couple who is basically celebrating their anniversary with this big dinner that they plan, and these two hiker people end up passing by their house, and then the dad, or the guy in this relationship, is kind of a grouch, very sort of standoffish, but the wife is super professional, super nice, super sweet lady, and these two hikers basically get lost. One of the guys disrespects the family and kind of gets away. The other guy's pissed at him. The guy in this relationship threatens to shoot him. He doesn't like that kid. But the woman, the girl, seems very kind of nice, very sort of sweet, and they invite her in for the dinner that's going to happen. And you get these hints throughout the story that may or may not be dealing with potentially cannibalistic traits involving the couple. And it goes down a very predictable route. But it is well done. It's very creepy, and it is quite creative towards the end. And it ends on a very dark, sinister note. This one gets a 7.8 out of 10. Although it is predictable, it is a well done episode, and it is more original than Bigelow's Last Smoke. So yeah, I give it a 7.8 out of 10, but it is ranked number 4. This is one that I would recommend to a lot of you guys. Simple to the point, but it's a well done episode. And yeah, I recommend it for you guys to check out. Next one. This is the top 3. Now, the top 3 are the ones I consider to be really good, and they are the ones that I would recommend to all of you guys to check out, especially if you're going to only check out 3 episodes in Tales from the Darkside, or only a couple. from season 1. These are the ones I recommend. Number 3 is Inside the Closet, which is about this college girl who's studying and she needs a place to stay. So a professor at her college allows her to stay in her house because he has a spare room that belonged to his daughter. He has a bunch of taxidermied animals around his crib, and she ends up setting up her stuff in his room, but he doesn't have access to the closet because his daughter locked it and he never found the key. So it's this very little closet in the room that nobody has access to. And since she can't get in, she kind of has to live out of her suitcase, but she's okay with it as long as she has a place to stay, and the guy seems friendly enough. She just needs a place to stay for her studies. And he promises, no parties, no boyfriends, no nothing, and you'll have a quiet place where you can succeed throughout the semester. And then one night, she starts hearing noises in the closet, and she thinks that maybe there might be an infestation, maybe there's a mouse in the house, and she tries opening the closet, but of course she can't open it, and she makes it her mission to try to find out what's in the closet. This mouse every night makes noise, and one day when it randomly pops open, she does put a mouse trap in there, and she tries to find out, is there anything in there? But sometimes the closet is full of clothes, other times there's no clothes. You don't really get a reason as to why, but that's sort of this weird mystery, maybe a haunted closet or something. And you eventually start getting the idea that maybe the owner knows more than meets the eye, and possibly there may be something lurking in that closet, which is quite dangerous and more than she may have expected when she moved in. So that is Inside the Closet, the most I'm willing to give. The twist ending is also very surprising, goes down a really weird, freaky, disturbing route, very fucked up route, but it is good. Although it is predictable, although there is some stuff that doesn't have any explanation, it is a pretty really good episode, pretty great episode. So I would give this one an 8 out of 10. This one is pretty goddamn good. So it's very creepy, has a tense atmosphere. The potential thing in the closet has a very creepy practical effect design, which is very cool, very creepy, very freaky, and it adds to the story. So yeah, I would recommend Inside the Closet. This one gets an 8 out of 10. The first really good story in Tales from the Darkside, which is sad. That's only 3 that make it out of these 24 episodes, but it is what it is. I do recommend this one. Number 2 is Answer Me, which gets an 8.2 out of 10. This is hands down probably the creepiest, scariest episode in this entire season. Answer Me is about this aspiring actor woman from England who moves to California and tries to get her big break in Hollywood. She applies to different studios and directors trying to get, an acting role, but she can't get it. And then as she's renting this apartment where she lives in because she got it for a good deal, next door she hears noises. She hears this loud phone ringing every damn day, every damn night, throughout the day, throughout the night. And it feels like it's right against the wall and nobody ever picks up. And then she hears these big knocks and bangs against the wall, which kind of freaks her out. She kind of wonders who's living there. As she starts investigating and starts losing sleep because she can't get any sleep throughout the night, she starts losing out on acting roles and potential money opportunities. She starts trying to figure out who lives next door, and it turns out that the landlords or people that own the apartments think that nobody lives next door and nobody's lived there for a long time. She finds out a potential story about the last person who lived there ended up killing herself, committing suicide in there. So you get the idea maybe there's something more going on, and as she investigates and one day finds a way to get into that apartment, she finds out the horrors of what may be going on, and the ending to the story is super, super dark, super twisted, super fucked up. Although it is a little bit predictable, the way this episode is done is extremely creepy and extremely well done, and it gets an 8.2 out of 10. This is a really good episode. This is easily the most fucked up episode in this entire season, and it is one that I would recommend tremendously. It deals with some very dark and disturbing themes, so be prepared. And although it's not done in the most dark way, the implications are very dark. So just be prepared, some very dark material. But this is what I would have expected out of this season. So yeah, very good, 8.2 out of 10, Answer Me, number 2 on my list. And now number 1. Drum roll, number 1 on my list, for those who haven't figured out already, is the best story in this entire season, one that I find very brilliant, one that I find great. And that is A Case of the Stubborn. It's a great title for a story. This one gets an 8.4 out of 10. This is the most brilliant story in the entire season. It is a dark comedy done in one of the most, I guess, well done ways possible. The execution is great. It has a lot of subtle commentary throughout it. It's very witty. It did make me laugh. It has a lot of charm to it, but it is very dark. It has great practical effects involving the grandfather situation. And the ending is bittersweet. It's a very fucked up ending note where it's super dark in terms of what happens, very gross, but it is heartfelt and sweet in terms of the ending because you get relief as to a character's conclusion finally reaching a peaceful place. So A Case of the Stubborns is about this very religious countryside family who lives in this small town, and their grandfather passed away the previous night and it leaves them a little bit empty. You know, the son kind of feels like he's sort of without his grandfather, and it's sort of leaving this lonesome place in his heart, but his mother is kind of there to comfort him and make him feel good, like, you know, you can live on with the memories of grandfather and his lessons that he left you. And what ends up happening is the grandfather comes down the stairs, and the grandfather is basically revealed to, I guess, still be walking and moving around and alive. Now, they don't know how this could have happened. The doctor came by and swore to God he was dead. And they don't know how this is happening, but he's here alive in front of them, acting like nothing's happening. And then they get the doctor to come by and check him again. And when he puts the stethoscope on him, he realizes he has no heartbeat, and he realizes he has to be dead. He should be dead right now. He's a walking corpse with full consciousness. How is this even possible? And the mother gets the realization that maybe because the grandfather was so stubborn and so in his ways, he might have been able to refuse death, even though his body was not able to refuse it. So he's able to defy death in a sense. And they bring over priests, they bring over other people to check him out. It's all sort of going against reality and freaking them out and scaring them, and they don't know what to do. And they have to find out a way on how to do it. So the son decides, you know what, since their grandfather's so stubborn he won't be able to meet a peaceful end unless they find unorthodox methods, he goes down a route of potentially meeting a potential voodoo person that's local in the town that the grandfather knew. And even though the mother and all the religious people completely go against dark magic like that, he realizes it may be the only way to solve it. So he finds a way, tries attempting it, and then you get the conclusion to the story, which is very gross. Again, great practical effects, but it is in a way very heartfelt and emotional in terms of finding a good conclusion. The grandfather throughout the story is very funny. He's very witty. There's a lot of great subtle humor, very clever, very well done, and it has great practical effects in terms of the corpse's body rotting away while his grandfather feels very, you know, proud and confident. His body's not keeping up. It's deteriorating. It's decaying in front of him. There's a bad smell. There's bad rotting of the flesh. And yet there is a beautiful ending towards the end amongst all this dark, disturbing content. So yeah, The Case of the Stubborns got an 8.4 out of 10. This is the only episode I would consider to be brilliant throughout season 1, and this is the top one, the one that I recommend to everybody. This is actually the best dark comedy that I have read or seen in a very long time, if ever. And I don't know if this will be surpassed anytime soon, but yeah, this is my favorite dark comedy that I've seen. This gets an 8.4 out of 10. And I think this was extremely well done. Maybe by the end this would eventually go up, but right now this is where I'm going to keep it. So that wraps up the season 1 ranking of Tales from the Darkside, this 2-parter video. This is the end of part 2, and overall the way I feel about the season is that it was full of a lot of stinkers, full of a lot of meh episodes, unfortunately, but it did have a few decent good ones in there, and the top 3 are actually great episodes that I would recommend to all of you, and those 3 episodes I am actually very glad that I got to check out. So yeah, that's it for season 1 of Tales of the Darkside. I am currently watching season 2, so I'll be reviewing and go through more of it. But I hope you enjoyed this long, connected review. I hope you guys let me know your thoughts below. If you've watched Tales from the Darkside, let me know how you feel about it. And again, if you've checked out and gotten this far, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. It's a free way to support me. It lets me know you guys are engaged with the content. It lets me know you guys want more of this content. It builds a sense of community. So please, if you would, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. It means a lot to me. And comment down below your own thoughts and opinions. If you you've not checked out Tales from the Darkside, go check out some of my recommendations and then come back and let me know your thoughts. If you have checked out Tales from the Darkside Season 1, what are your thoughts down below? I know Goosebumps Completionist will comment and let me know, so I'm excited to hear your thoughts, Austin. Even though we have talked, it'll be good to have it in one more conversation solidified. And yeah, hope you guys stay tuned for more content to come. Sorry about the little bit of a long break, but I will have obviously more videos coming out. And I hope you guys are excited for that. Again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment, and share this video around and this content with other people if you enjoyed. And yeah, I hope to see you soon and next time. Deuces. I am fucking out of breath and I am hungry. So if I don't want to end up like a case of the stubborns as a rotting dead body because of starvation, I'm gonna dip the fuck out of here. And hopefully I'm not anywhere near black pepper for obvious reasons. I got a big ass nose. I can't be losing this bitch. You feel me? Peace out, y'all.